pharmaceutical product. And if you want to be on United Healthcare's plan, you got to pay to play. If you want to be on Medicare, Medicaid, that is all an illusion. Medicare and Medicaid are outsourced to who? The big five insurance companies. And so throughout the chain of checks and balances and the system, they are now monetizing chronic disease. They're incentivized for you to be on more and more medications because it's a profit center for them. And so to explain how that works, people go, well, wait a second. Why would an insurance company mark it up? Because they're the ones paying for it. Bullshit. They don't pay for it. Insurance companies pass that bill on at the end of the year to your employer. And 92% of people's insurance are from their employer. So most people never realize. And then they also have what's called gap pricing. So the only reason I know all this, just to take people a walk through like history on me, is I had the touch points. I was a drug rep. And I went from that, I sold, I launched Cialis in North America, the Viagra competitor, which was a blast. Like, it was fun. Everyone loved it. Nobody was complaining about Cialis. But then I got pivoted to antidepressants and antipsychotics, and I saw the dark side of big pharma. And within 8 months, I was out of there, and I left to go be a device rep where I stood in surgeries with the best and brightest surgeons in the world, and I saw those problems. And then from there, I became a serial entrepreneur in healthcare where I attempted to work within the insurance framework. And what I saw was so eye-opening, it made it all finally make sense. I was like, oh my God, this is what they're doing. And once you know the magic trick, you can see it over and over and over again. And so the magic trick is we push people to medications and prescription drugs. A real-world example would be the opioid crisis. What nobody realized, and an article came out maybe 2 months ago, I think in the New York Times, 30% of the money and revenue generated from opioid abuse in this country went to the big insurance companies. Never did they get indicted. Never did they get questioned. Never did they get sued. They skated scot-free, but they had negotiated rebates on opioids. Why that's important is I owned pharmacies that offered alternatives to opioids. I would go out and educate clinicians on the importance of not prescribing opioids because I lost my brother to opioids. They pushed it into the market. They let Big Pharma ramrod it via a deal with the FDA. The head of the FDA then went to go work for Purdue Pharma, who brought that drug to market for a big, huge, fat salary 3 years later. Purdue Pharma, who created the Valium crisis in the 70s, then perpetuated the opioid crisis in the 2000s and the 90s. And then all of that was profiteered by big pharma and big insurance.
Where are we at with Purdue Pharma now? I've watched at least 2 or 3 documentaries or series that have been made about that situation, I think, in the last half decade. What's the current state of Purdue and what's the current state of opioids, accessibility, how hard they're being pushed in America?
So
right now?
Opioids are very hard to get at this point. However, the equivalent to a 747 jet worth of people are dying every day to opioid-related deaths. Because now that they cannot get opioids via clinicians, they've turned to black market. You've already created and perpetuated the problem. Now you've cut off the source, and these people are turning to, products from Mexico that are indirectly coming from China that are cut with fentanyl. And that's candidly what killed my brother. And so it's tragic. And then the most frustrating of all is Purdue Pharma's new blockbuster drug for opioid abuse. They are now selling the cure to opioid abuse, which is a new product that does help reduce opioids and has way less side effects, but it is also addictive. So you're giving a new addictive product to an addict and now monetizing and perpetuating the problem you created.
So opioids.
And then they're also trying to obstruct the ability to products like Ibogaine in the United States, which, is a one-time treatment and has over an 85% success rate.
At getting people off.
Yes, at getting people off these drugs.
Although it may be a slightly challenging process for 36 hours or whatever when you go through it.
Yeah.
So what happened with opioids? How have they been pulled?
So opioids, they put a lot of restrictions in place to make it harder. It's called triplicate. Clinicians have to document, and then prove they can justify, and their license is at risk. And people went to prison because they were
protecting against overprescription.
Correct. Because what happened is, like any boom, unfortunately, where there's a lot of money, there becomes a lot of bad actors. And that's what you're seeing today with even GLP-1s and weight loss drugs. I mean, it's popped up on every corner. Every single freaking telemedicine company is candidly prescribing GLP-1s. And I'm not against them because we prescribe those at our company as well, at Ways to Well. But are they being overutilized, overprescribed, and inappropriately utilized? For sure.
I remember I came to LA maybe 2018, something like that. And this would have been, I think, before California legalized weed, but when you could get it with a medical marijuana card. And I remember the first time I ever went to Venice Beach, oh my God, I'm going to go and see Muscle Beach. It's going to be so cool. I'm like, just living the dream, right?
Yeah.
So late 20s, one of the first times I've come to America, and a famous Venice boardwalk. Every third little kiosk was some guy that could give you a medical marijuana card. Like, how many marijuana doctors are there that exist on Venice Boardwalk? And, for every legislative loophole, there is an opportunity for people to capitalize on it.
Correct.
And, I suppose you also have, during COVID, people got lazy. OnlyFans did well. Over the last 50 years, people have got fatter, which now has opened up the opportunity for anorectics and similar drugs to come through.
And it's a good tool in the tool belt if you're chronically obese, diabetic, and sick and headed towards chronic disease. Of course, I'm never here to judge. We've got to put wins on the board and we've got to get the weight off. But I say this all the time. Prescribing a GLP-1 without talking about diet, lifestyle, and nutrition is like brushing your teeth while eating fucking Oreos. It's very counterintuitive. It's just, you've got to address the root cause. And the root cause is diet, lifestyle, and nutrition.
So the opioids have been pulled, access to those has been made more difficult. That's resulted in people they've still got the dependency, but the supply is now being cut off because
and if we walk through like how, so take a step back, I guess at this point, almost 14 years ago, as an entrepreneur, I had steps and protocols and procedures in place. So I would go meet with clinicians around the country and I would educate them on the importance of not prescribing opioids lightly. And the message was this: these can be very valuable to treat chronic pain. When utilized in the right patient, it can be life-saving. But if you utilize this in the wrong patient, you're going to kill somebody. And so why not take the proper steps? There is a non-abusive, non-addictive alternative to opioids, and that is a ketamine-based pain cream, and it can't be abused. You can't separate out the ketamine. You have no way of abusing it. It's a topical, but for orthopedic injuries, knees, shoulders, elbows, joints, backs, they were prescribing opioids for 2 months at a time, writing like 60-day prescriptions. You're perpetuating this problem, and then those get diverted. And so here were the safety nets. Don't prescribe it. Prescribe a non-abusive, non-addictive pain cream. That's option one. Option two, you think this patient needs it. Okay. Toxicology screen this patient to make sure that they're not abusing other drugs or diverting this drug. Option three, you should at minimal pharmacogenetic test, which was a simple cheek swab that tells me if you have a propensity to become addicted. It tells me, can you even metabolize this drug? Because 23% of opioid users can't even metabolize it. All of those checks and balances, within a year, the insurance company said, we're not covering any of it. Put them back on an opioid. Why? And at the time I'm going, why? We're literally giving life rafts. We're saving lives. Why would you do this? I didn't realize they were making money off of it. 30%.
Because if the ketamine topical ointment is non-addictive, what's the reason for people to keep coming back?
Coming back, and the insurance companies hadn't negotiated rebates because that was a compounded drug. So insurance companies hate compounding pharmacies.
Can you explain what